So I think some folks are going to continue to trickle in, but I did want to take the opportunity to just welcome everybody into this space. I know some folks took ferries and drove really far to be here. This is the second time we've ever done a Crabstock. The first one was pre-COVID, so now we're going to make it a once every 5 years event. So you'll see us back here again in 5 years, I hope. This is a day to celebrate your work as monitors in the Crab Team Network. We're going to do a lot of sharing and storytelling. We're excited to have some guests who are friends and family of Crab Team monitors to get to find out where their friends and family have been disappearing to and coming back from, smelling like mackerel and mud every 2 days a month for however many years. We are going to share stories with you. We hope you'll share stories with each other and also with us. And of course, one of the best ways to do that is with food. So there will be food today as well. So our agenda today, we're going to hang out here for a little bit and just review our 2024 season, which we have just last week wrapped up. Did everybody? Yeah, congratulations. I don't know if you feel like me, but I just kind of do breathe a sigh of relief when on October 1st, when I'm like, okay, at least there's other crapping going on, but at least this one thing is wrapping up for the season. We're going to have 4 old timers bring up rocking chairs and sit on the porch and tell stories at you for a while. And we also are going to, because this is all a monitor recognition event, we're going to spend some time celebrating your contributions. And then we'll go into a little bit more detail on what you can expect from the rest of this afternoon's festivities. So first what I want to do is we'll get to, hopefully spend, it's like a wedding. It's like you have to talk to everybody. So we'll hopefully get to talk to you one-on-one all today, but I'll let you know who's in the room today from Crab Team HQ. So I'm Emily Grayson. I'm the program lead for Crab Team. The other Crab Team staff to introduce themselves. We'll start with Lisa.
Hi, I'm Lisa. I'm your lead.
Jeff Adams, marine ecologist and founder?
Yeah, you'll hear
Hey everybody, Sean McDonald, Crab Guy.
Hi everyone, Kate Lido. I'm the Deputy Director at Washington Sea Grant and a behind-the-scenes member of the Crab Team since the beginning. Hi everyone, I'm Elise Kelsey and I'm a graduate student with Crab Team.
Hi everyone, I'm Zach. I'm the other student assistant with Crab Team for less than a year, so less impressive, but nice to see you.
And I'll just start off with a quick round of applause specifically for Zach and Elise, because everything that you see today is the result of their effort and their heart and their brains. So thank you. Okay, we wanted to honor a few transitions since in the last year. Zach is new since our last event, but Zach is very much not new anymore. Zach is very established and has been out there in the mud with some of you already. Also, since our last sort of update, Alex Stout has taken a job at the Department of Natural Resources, and so we're very much still missing Alex a lot. She's left waiters that we cannot fill. Elise has just passed her 1-year mark with Crab Team, and I also wanted to put up on the slide that many of you over the course of the program may have also met some of the other people who have made this program happen over the last few years, and we're so excited for the places they have gone. Kelly Martin now works for NOAA down in Galveston, Texas, working on deep sea coral restoration following the Deepwater Horizon spill. Super cool. Amy Linhart is now a teacher and instructor at Pierce College and is teaching biology courses. Ina just graduated last spring from the School of Marine and Environmental Affairs and was just announced that she is a finalist for the Knaus Fellowship and will be doing an executive branch placement in Washington, D.C. starting in January, February. Wow. Yeah, right? And Stacey McMahon, who is actually here today, so I feel like you should. Stacey, do you want to actually get up and rather than me telling no, she doesn't. Stacy's not working today, so she doesn't have to do that. But Stacy Stacy is also very much linked to the startup MoldSearch, which you'll hear more about today. This is a monitor recognition event, so we would be remiss if we did not acknowledge that 2 Crab team staffs are also monitors right out there with you. Jeff and Sean both monitor their own sites. Sean, what is your site?
The Dr. Bush site.
Dr. Bush, woo! And Jeff?
KPI and
Rob's
Lagoon. We'll get to Dusty Memory. On Bachelor Island, and others from those teams are here. So.
Yes.
Yay.
All of you make this possible. Ben, unfortunately, who many of you might know is a Crab Team postdoc. His postdoc term just wrapped up, and he really wanted to be here today, but he had other travel. He's currently continuing with Crab Team as a project specialist, working on some additional research in our Tracker Summit this year. So that, I think, is everyone. Yes? Okay. So for now, I'm going to actually pass it to Lisa to kick us off with the start of our program.
Huzzah! This is our opportunity to, oh yes. You have a pin, here's mine. Okay, great. This is our opportunity to look back at this past season. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time reviewing what all happened in these past 6 months across the whole network. Since you've all seen so intimately your one little slice, let's look a little broader at the full Crab Team ecosystem. And to start, I'll put on my MoldSearch hat really briefly. This is a program that we run, you've noticed, very separately from the Crab Team Monitoring Network. But many of you dabble in both worlds. So briefly, MoldSearch is now in its second year of existence. We have gotten almost 1,000 reports from community members across Washington State. So far, no green crab where we haven't expected them. So it's in some ways doing its job, reassuring us that there's no surprises so far where people have been searching. But this gives us about enough reports to start looking at what we might be able to learn from these data, apart from just an early detection tool. So we'll be diving into some of the Dungeness reports and what we can learn there. This is a program that we run in partnership with WSU Extension, and this past year have brought on board a number of other local partners who send staff to our Train the Trainers in the spring and host local trainings across the coastlines to help make those trainings accessible to folks. This is my pitch. If you have a little community group or a book club, or you know groups that may be interested in getting trained up on how to search for green crab, you all know how to do this. This whole protocol is a spin-off of the Molt Hunt protocols, but we are happy to get your groups trained too. So I think this is a really nice program for doing some more of that outreach and getting more people in the know about green crab in general. Those are all submitted through the MyCoast app is how we get those data and collect those from the public. So, the monitoring network, a familiar sight to many of you. Looking at it by the numbers, we had over 300 people participating this year in monitoring at their sites every month. That's over 3,200 hours of monitoring work, of scrubbing traps, of driving to the sites, and setting and retrieving sites. We still have data to enter, but that is a significant amount of effort, and it's done by almost 50 folks joined our network this year, and 30 of you have stuck around since really the very start, which is just an amazing asset. This amount of sustainability through our program is really, really valuable and really helps keep things running. I want to say that all of you participating in this have touched 44,000 more. I did a quick calculation, and that's about 30 claws for every crab team or finger out there in the network, assuming we average about 10 each. That's a lot of crabs. But this is also our opportunity to look back across all the last 10 years, and since day one, we've had over 770 monitors participating in this work. A tremendous amount of hours, a tremendous amount of effort, hopefully a lot of laughter, hopefully a lot of fun too. But this is just an incredible group that we are here to really celebrate today. Thank you so much for being in this room with us. Like last year, your monitoring occurred across a total of 68 sites in Washington shorelines, 11 of them along the coast, where green crab were first found, in the late 90s. So a little different scenario there, but crab team monitoring has been incorporating those protocols out on the coast for the last 5 years, since 2020. So this is their fifth birthday of our full network here. They are a collection of really beautiful spots too, way on out there, following these same protocols. And we have 58 inland sites that have been sampling for early detection and also collecting really valuable baseline data on those pocket estuaries and tidal creeks. And this year we started incorporating both those coastal monitors and inland monitors into the same kind of communications and some of the same workflows. So we really are this one big network that we're celebrating all together here today. We try to get out there with you all every 2 to 3 years and got to about 30 this year. So if we haven't seen you on site lately, we will soon and look forward to it. Just a few site highlights. We like to kind of dive back in and see what we found, and this is just an ongoing process as the data continues to roll in from certain sites. I think one fun highlight, the superlatives that I'll give here, is probably the biggest informal, unplanned outreach event goes to Blakely Harbor, where they were out there doing their trap retrieval, and along came an entire class from Islandwood Environmental Education group that sat around and did a nice little Q&A with them, which we just love to see. Another highlight is we had 3 sites that were completely brand new monitors out there just diving in the mud, doing a really wonderful job. A shout out to Scott and Regan, who did a nice job passing the torch in April to the new crew out there. But three sites that just won it and succeeded. So thanks to all of you who are in this room from those teams. I think maybe our superlative with the most involved is Tokeland, located here in Willapa Bay, recorded a record high for the network, capturing 181 green crab in the 36 traps that they set this year, including a whopping 99 in the month of August. Last year they had about 26 total. Nakata, which is also there in Willapa Bay, is in second place with 170 crabs that they captured this year. We have a whole lot more data crunching and summaries that we'll continue doing as the off-season, the leaf crunching season and data crunching season are right on top of each other for us here, and so we'll continue to get these reports out to you. Starting kind of in December and into January, we'll get summaries and more analysis to you about what we found. I want to pass it over to Emily to talk more about season in review for green crab.
Okay. So as you heard Lisa say, and as you know, we've learned over the past decade, the processes that are driving green crabs and the patterns that we're seeing are somewhat different between coastal estuaries and our inland geography. If you want the full meal deal on that talk, feel free to track me down at lunch. But we're going to talk a little bit here about these two geographies separately with inland CAMA. And so here, y'all are familiar when we talk about what some of the hot spots are. Here we're just going to talk about just the crab team monitoring data. And as the season wraps up, a lot of the other partner trappers are still out there working. Unfortunately, they're still catching green crabs. But we'll have more as the season wraps up about what the big picture patterns are. What's been interesting this year is that the monitoring network patterns of green crab have really mirrored what's going on across the partner trapping efforts as well. So this last year, we had 7 sites where green crab were detected as a part of monthly monitoring, and including two molts were found, 1 dead crab at Hancock Lake. I know, yeah, there they are, way in the back. And 9 live green crabs total. This year, the green crab were only detected at 5 sites and 6 live green crabs. So the numbers are relatively similar, and they were detected in similar locations. No new surprises this year, like last year, our big surprise was at Nick's Lagoon. And we're seeing some of our patterns echo the late season young of the year uptick. So at Drayton Harbor, the last monitoring effort of the year caught a young of the year tiny little crab. And that just really mirrors what's going on with the partner trappers who were finding a lot of young of the year in August and September. I'm hearing that on the North Olympic Peninsula, now young of the year are starting to show up at the Dungeness Spit-Face Lagoon, and it sort of seems like it's a little bit of a time delay there. So we're starting to see these patterns emerge that are being captured in the network, if at a smaller scale, which is just exactly what it's supposed to do. In the coastal sites, we have, what we're going to show you here is the change over the last, since 2020, as Lisa mentioned, this is the 5th year we've had these sites. Each line on this graph will be a different one of the coastal monitoring sites, and their catch rate in terms of green crabs per 100 trap sets. So there is variability, but what you'll notice in 2024 is that there are a number of sites that had significant increases relative to last year. And this is also what we're observing in the partner trapping data, which has shown catch rates of about 3 to 5 times, at least 3 to 5 times greater than they were last year. We think a lot of these patterns are being driven by last winter's El Nino winter. So those, we often talk about those warm water patterns driving increased recruitment. We've seen that inland, and we're seeing that coastally as well. So this, remains to be seen where this goes, but I guess this is all to sort of reflect back that these data on green crab are incredibly important to and informative to what's going on at the management scale as well. Okay. I guess we can pause here and just take a question on, 2024. Any questions? We're going to sort of transition into a retrospective, we can go further back in the Wayback Machine. Anybody have any questions or? No? Well, then I will also at the same time invite Jeff and Sean and Kate to come up here and mic up, because I do think we really did want to get like 4 rocking chairs and sit there and put on. Because what we'd like to do is do a little bit of sharing. Today is all about historicizing. 10 years is much further than I think any of us thought Crab Team would go. We thought, the truth of it is we actually thought that there wouldn't be a need for Crab Team. Just going to play the music. We're going to try to mic up all of us so that you can hear us all pretty well. But this 10-year anniversary has been a really great opportunity and a really joyful opportunity for us to look back at how we ended up in a place I think none of us really expected to be 10 years later. So what we wanted to do was illuminate some of the history of Crab Team that you may or may not be familiar with, and do so in a way which is hopefully colorful and hopefully enjoyable, but at least,
Just apologize
yeah, should we for being the chatty old timers.
for making you listen to us for the next few minutes.
So what we're going to do is we're going to walk you through a little bit of the history of the program. There are also a number of opportunities today for you to contribute to our historical timeline, and all of the stuff that we didn't miss that we've missed because we don't get to be on site with you, we also want to hear about. But Jeff and Sean and Kate and I are going to try to remember as much as we can. It turns out we've already forgotten a lot, so maybe also you can help us fill in the gaps. We are going to start back in 2014 when Crab Team was just a twinkle in Jeff's eye. And the funny thing about Crab Team is Crab Team, technically, if we're talking about it, Crab Team didn't start at the UW campus. Crab Team started in Portland. Jeff, like, can you tell us about, like?
Take it away, grab my rocking chair. Can you hear okay? Because we've got several different systems, cool. At a International Marine Bioinnovations Conference down in Portland, I enjoyed just hanging out with a bunch of cool folks. When the Canadian colleague, one of our Canadian researcher colleagues was like, hey, we found a bunch of green crabs in Soup Basin, the south end of Whitby. That was the first time.
Vancouver?
Yeah.
See, Sean and I were commiserating about memory the other day, and so
That's
we
why
got
all
Chris.
four of us are here.
The bigger island, Vancouver Island, and Canadian waters, but that's in the Salish Sea, right? So that brings us to kind of our next steps. And I immediately thought of Sean because he and I were students at the School of Fisheries at the same time. He got more time in this building.
more hair back then.
Yeah, it's tucked into under the hat.
This is Sean, which you might not recognize from the photo.
Because it's got hair.
All the photographs of me are grainy. It's like Bigfoot.
With a temperature
With
sensor.
the YSI.
So yeah, immediately thought of Sean. I was like, hey, so this is different. And folks have been monitoring for green crab for years, but had stopped because they hadn't found any. So next step, we were like, hey, what can we do? And Sean happened to be working at the UW with a lot of students and had a lot of connections.
And can I just add one story here, which was my favorite? When we were looking back at, Sean has all the old emails between him and Jeff and Kate before I was even on the program. And Jeff emailed Sean and was like, hey, Sean, I think this is like this green crab was found in soup, or these green crabs in soup. And Sean's response was like, interesting. Which, if you spend any time,
Interesting.
if you spend any time with Sean, that's everything is very interesting to Sean. So it was on brand.
Okay, but we need the stars for Sean, right?
There's
So
Sean.
Sean started his green crab career.
Yeah, down in California. So that picture was actually taken in Bodega Bay, California, which is where I actually started my graduate work. Because believe it or not, when I started, there were no green crab here, so I had to go down to California to study green crab. It was a different time. And in fact, actually, while I was doing my graduate work, we found green crab much closer to home. I had nothing to do with it. Travel plan is a little bit easier to manage, but yeah, I actually, as Jeff said, we had trouble with our memories, so I actually had to go back root through my email because I keep everything. I have some great emails from Alan Place in here. And I said, if you agree, I'd like to chat about getting a student or a couple students to go through the old photography and identify all the suitable habitats based on our shared understanding of pre-selected criteria. I used to write emails so much better than I do now.
Yeah, and so that's, I believe, when you had capstone students.
Yeah, we brought a couple of students on to help us with this work, and they did some of the early work. We told them what to look for in terms of habitat. They looked at all of the Department of Ecology's shore zone photos, all the shoreline photography around Puget Sound and the Straits. They started looking at all those pictures.
Yeah, and Jeffrey and Chris, who were those students, actually this poster was the student,
Best student poster.
best student poster at the Salish Sea Conference that year.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, it got a lot of visibility for what we thought might become something that would get people's attention.
And I feel like that maps are really at the core of what Crab Team does. I was joking with you all at check-in about putting your site number on the tag, and it's like, or you can put the coordinates on your site coordinates on the tag. And someone actually said, what if I draw a map of the site? And I was like, yes. So this map is really what motivated Crab Team in a lot of ways, was identifying how much it sort of, made an image of how much the Salish Sea had to lose, I guess, in some ways. And I think that provided the basis for some of the initial funding.
Well, yeah, I think Alan is in the crowd. The other question I would ask is, how many conversations did Alan have to have with Jeff to say, hey, Jeff, I think you and Sea Grant should do this thing. You should resurrect a green crab monitoring network in the state. How many conversations? How many did that take, Alan?
Just one.
many more. Jeff was like, I'm getting lots of pressure from Alan at WDFW for Washington Sea Grant to do this thing. But Alan was also very kind in helping connect us to some EPA funding through WDFW, the Marine Nearshore Lead Organization funding, which helped us start the program. And the cool thing is that the sort of subsequent programs under EPA funding for Puget Sound, the Habitat Strategic Initiative, is still funding the program today, 10 years later. And so that just speaks to the importance of the program to the region, to Puget Sound restoration and recovery and protection.
Okay, so that money was really important in my life.
Because we were fortunate enough, because we needed to have some help. You know, we all had our own other jobs and we couldn't do this alone. And that money gave us an opportunity to hire someone. And we were really fortunate to drag someone away from their snails, their beloved snails, out of the mud of Willapa, out of the mud of Padilla Bay, and into our office and our hearts, and has launched this program in a way that we never could have actually imagined at the time. So thankfully, Emily came on in late 2014.
And Emily was still a graduate student at the time. So when some of you first met Emily, you might remember that.
Some of you were at my dissertation.
I still remember actually Emily writing just to see if she would be appropriate for this job. She used to write me such nice emails because I think she looked up to me. But you should never meet your heroes. I think that's the moral of the story. But yeah, we got it.
Because the first thing, like, I was excited to join Crab Team because I had been working out in the mud. And the first thing, of course, I had to do as a member of Crab Team was spend, I think it was a total of 24 hours in a dark conference room with Sean looking at imagery to refine our site map.
It wasn't 24 hours straight.
It wasn't 24 hours. They did let me out for food and for bathroom breaks. Thanks, Sean. And, you know, we spent a lot of time looking at maps and looking at aerial imagery, but one of the places that Crab Team really came to life for me, where I was like, we can do this, right? Like, look at, this is a huge, scary geography. There's lots of red and orange on this. How are we ever going to cover all of this ground? Is this even practicable? One of for me, the places that Crab Team became real was actually on Whidbey Island. And specifically Deer Lagoon. The four of us got in a UW Fleet Services, like SUV, and we took the ferry, and we were just gonna like scout sites to be like, can we come up with a way to combine like what is these dots on the map that are good places for green crab and find good places for humans. And the first place that we landed that we were like, yes, this is doable, was actually Deer Lagoon behind Jeff's Head. Where we've obviously there's tons of other places since then, 68 sites that Lisa highlighted and many more that we, just if we had unlimited capacity and scope, in theory, somebody could monitor those. So this to me was, it was a big year for Crab Team, and lots of the pieces in place still very much carry through to today. And this is before we even started, right? Like, this is before we launched. The next year, 2015, was our first attempts at launching, and it also took a while for us to get our feet under us.
So after Emily and Sean spent hours in the dark conference room, we then spent time in a light conference room, right?
It was much better.
It was much better. We sort of resolved the map, but so if you get all these people together and then you ask them to start thinking about, like, how do we translate our ideas into an actual protocol? And what do we think volunteers can actually do? Can we ask volunteers to get in the mud? How many tracks can we ask volunteers to carry? Like, is any of this gonna make any sense? How do we do the transect survey? So, like, hours and hours and hours arguing amongst the four of us. Maybe you can picture it. We brought in other experts to talk about the transect survey. Emily recently dug up this first diagram from the very first transect survey. Those of you who were around that year might remember this, and you might look at this and go, "That's not at all what we do now." And you're right, because we did it that way the first year, and then we were like, "Oh yeah, y'all helped us figure out what works, what doesn't thing we hoped at the time to never find, with the idea of collecting really cool data about native species in these areas that not many people spent very much time in. How do we do that in a way that engages volunteers? I don't think we ever in a million years dreamed that we would have volunteers continuing to participate with us 10 years later, right? So apparently, like that to me feels like a huge achievement of figuring out how to do all of this in a way that promotes continued engagement and really allows people to feel ownership and excitement about the program. We also
You're all gluttons for punishment.
We also spent like an embarrassing number of hours discussing what we should use for bait.
We almost didn't make it past. This could have been the thing that like killed crab team.
I mean, it's a miracle that we got 2 months of monitoring that first year. This might have prevented it because the debate, do we use captive or do we use real fish? This went on for hours. Hours and hours and hours. And how many different people did we ask about this question?
Mm-hmm.
We finally made a choice, right? Like we just
What did we
like
decide?
pick something,
Pop
y'all.
quiz.
We gotta pick something. What did we pick?
Kate, she's dodging the question. Kate, what's our bait?
Mackerel.
Yes.
And really, it was really just so we could use all the mackerel jokes, holy mackerel. But we did open a lot of cans of cat food.
We did. And I will say that as bad as you think mackerel smells, like after being in the water for 24 hours, cat food is worse. You go out and put that in the water for 24 hours and take it out, it is actually worse.
Okay, but because Sean is like a geeky scientist, right? So we made this choice. It was like, we gotta commit. We made this choice. Sean was like, okay, but I can't let it go. I'm gonna find a student. And so the very next year, Sean found a student to actually do a trial out in the field.
Yep, we tested it, and we definitely learned that cat food is not good.
It smells really bad. That's what it is.
That's because you guys wanted to cut bait, right?
It's more fun. It's more fun.
It is more fun. So we did finally ultimately figure out that we were going to use mackerel, and we're really glad that we did. That's like one thing I feel pretty good about. And now it's time to get people out in the mud. So this was a real transition to the program to be like, who actually wants to go out to these places? Right? I don't know how many of you had the experience of like thinking that you were going to be on a beautiful beach monitoring, and then you get to your site and you get to, and Emily's like, yeah, that is a beautiful beach. Let's turn around and like go into this muddy estuary that you thought always smelled really bad. So our first training events, this is the very first one we ever had in Olympia, and they were such a strong learning experience for me. I had done certainly some teaching of undergrads and in other sort of capacities, but this is like it has been an absolute joy of my life to work with folks who are volunteering their time, who are so keen to learn more, but it's also been a learning experience for me to learn how to teach in a different way. One of the things I love about this picture is Gail here today. I think she was coming, but she might not have arrived yet. Because I'm just about to feature her because she was my strongest teacher in the first training event when I gave this whole presentation. I was so proud of it. And then she raised her hand and she's like, "Okay, cool, but what's riprap?" And I was like, "Yes, that is a great question. Something I should remember." So it was all about learning how to teach in a lot of ways. And always appreciating when folks were like, okay, all this fancy stuff is great, but how is this going to actually work? So in that way, it's just been an absolute team effort to make these trainings and to make the sort of the onboarding of crab teamers work as well as I think / hope it does. And then of course there's all these other funny stories about learning how to do trainings. There was the time at the Whidbey Island. Do you remember that? We were in this super tiny room.
I just want to point out the look on Emily's face. I'm trying to teach somebody something.
And we had to kneel on the floor to teach, which was fun. And the time in Port Townsend, when we were an hour into our 3-hour training, and the venue came to tell us that they were like, "Oh, you're only here for 2 hours. You have to fit." And so now, crab team trainings take 6 to 8 hours, and we used to try to do them in 3, and there was the time we had to do it in 2. think, over time, I hope. So, it was all fun and games for the first couple of years.
Year and a half.
Year and a half.
2 years.
Until the Crab Team hotline rang. And that was a shock to us. I mean, you think that we set out to create a program to do early detection of green crab, but we honestly, even though we'd spent so much time, we didn't expect to find a green crab, at least so soon. At least so soon. And so that there were some expletives, I think, when the phone rang. But I think, you know, it was also a little bit vindicating that we put together a program targeting specific habitats, and the first place that they were found in inland waters was at one of our sites.
Yeah, I mean, and moreover, not just one of our sites, but Westcott Bay was a site that had been monitored for green crab continuously since the late 90s. But it was a different part of Westcott Bay than we put the crab team site in. And in fact, this is Sylvia Yamada at OSU who was doing that trapping at the time. And she happened to be on the island trapping at the Westcott Bay Shellfish Company for green crab when the monitors, this is Craig and Jack here, had traps out and made the first capture. And so even, you know, this is where we started to learn that sites matter in where you're going to find green crab and where you're not. So this, you know, it was exciting times for us, and it marked a pivot point because it's like, okay, great, we found green crabs. What comes next? Which is, I think, when Alan also looked, you know, Cloyce, who was the DFW unit, Aquatic Invasive Species Unit lead at the time, looked at us and said, okay, what do we do next? And we were like, I don't know. But again, I think we returned to a dark conference room. It was like our sit room, and just tried to pound out what would become our first models for assessment events. As folks know, like once a green crab is found, we go in with big piles of traps and really serious facial expressions. It used to be fun and games, and now we're serious.
Landing on the beach.
We use very fancy technical toys. We actually don't use these anymore. A lot of this was us figuring out how to do a different type of trapping that would give us different information, which really formed the basis for some of the ways that this work still happens today. The other thing I think we modeled was just the sort of the attitude of getting work, just making it happen, just figuring it out and making it happen. This is my favorite picture of Jeff, who's carrying literally 30 Fukui traps. And also he's on the phone because he's doing 3 things at once. So this multitasking is definitely a theme for us.
Yeah, and then of course in 2017, past the captures in Westcott Bay and also Manila Bay, we had captures in Dungeness Bay. And this is the Dungeness Spit area. And so this was an interesting time for us because we were transitioning not just from working with our volunteers and with some other partners, but now this was not only an early detection and then an assessment, but then a large-scale removal operation. And so we spent a lot of time working with the folks at the Wildlife Refuge in developing approaches and using a lot of other gear to try and not only characterize the extent of the invasion there, but also how to remove green crabs. And so in addition to these projects and the work that we did with Lawrence and others out at the Wildlife Refuge, we also undertook, this was the time when we undertook some other sorts of activities. We were working with oceanographers, we were working with geneticists, trying to characterize what was going on with that invasion in Dungeness Spit. And then later in 2017, we expanded again, working with tribal biologists. There's Adrian out on the coast in, I think that was, where are we at?
That's at the Suyas.
Was that?
That's at the Suyas.
Suyas, yeah, out on the coast.
And so this, what you're seeing here is the start of our 2018 to present period, which is really what we call our growth spurt. And growth spurt isn't really the right word for it because it hasn't stopped yet. Every year has been remarkable growth, and I think it will continue to be. And it's Crab Team and. So it's Crab Team and the huge community of partners partners that work together on this effort. So one of my first memories is actually, this was, I think, the first partner training workshop that Crab Team did, where I'm here at Westcott Bay with Patty Manning of Fisheries and Oceans Canada, who is here trying to learn how to take Crab Team and do it on the north side of the Salish Sea through DFO. This was also Chelsea Buffington's, one of her first field efforts in Washington, and 2018 was the first year that she started working with WDFW on green crab. So this really formed the foundation for a lot of the work that we continue to do with partners in building capacity. And that now extends all the way north up to Alaska. This is up in Metlakatla. That is me trying to stay dry and failing miserably. Where the landscape of green crab trapping looks really different, they get to drive really fun vehicles, and it rains a whole heck of a lot more. So those are the two things that I noticed that are different.
Well, and we did also start, the attention on the coast started to grow. They were the ones who had the green crab around for a while, but it started to get elevated around 2018, and certainly around the time COVID hit was also when it really got elevated. We were lucky enough to get Alex on board in 2020. And you can see all this fine equipment they had and new technology to monitor in these incredibly muddy bays. So expanded out onto the coast with the establishment of some sentinel sites. So this is when the one crab team started to take form. We had a period where we were kind of keeping some things separate for good reason, but also, it really shows the breadth of the program. And and I think something interesting that I find too is one of those pictures back there, Alan was actually in the back, kind of like a Sasquatch coming across the mud. WFW has been along with us. There we go. Has been along, has helped us along this ride and been that management agency for a while and one of the really valuable partners. So kind of the background for a lot of volunteers.
So with this growth in green crab on the coast, with new finds happening in the Salish Sea, right? This also sort of raised the attention. Folks might remember the timing of the statewide emergency declaration, right? A lot of that was on the basis of your work. It also garnered additional interest from elected officials. We had the opportunity to get Derek Kilmer out in the mud, actually finding green crab in 2022. I think
I was so worried because he wanted to bring press and he wanted to put on hip waders and get into the mud. And who's here from Nick's Lagoon? I saw that, yeah. And so I was just this is not on my hands. It just goes badly, and we end up with photos of him. But he was totally game and did a great job.
We also had an opportunity to visit with Derek and also Patty Murray in 2023 out at Jamestown. Right, so this is getting a lot more interest, not only locally, but nationally, right? The complexity of this issue has just grown exponentially over this time.
And of course, not only has it grown in complexity, but the number of people involved has grown. And we want to highlight and recognize the work that everybody in this room has done and contributed. And beyond all of us and beyond Crab Team, there are so many other partners working on this issue as well. Here's the group from the first Trapper Summit.
No, this is the latest.
The latest. I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, it's the latest one. Yeah, this is the latest one. I had to check out early, didn't I? But yeah, so these are trappers from so many different organizations. We have state agencies. We've got local jurisdictions. We've got tribal biologists, and of course, Crab Team WFW as well are well represented in this mission.
I just saw Brian. Brian had a great, Brian's here today. Absolutely. It's my favorite, that photo. Yeah, so I guess this is the slide where I wanted to reflect. We're going to wrap up our chin scratching here. But our lingering thought as we were talking about this is green crab in Washington is a way bigger challenge than maybe we would have wished for, and certainly than we expected. But the size of the team, a lot of which is in this room.
Is disconnected.
The size of this team and what we've been able to collectively accomplish over the last decade is, it has been really, truly, it's not hyperbole to say that it's put us in a position that almost nobody else has been able to get in terms of being on the early stages, on the early side of an invasion. And remembering what we've learned from the mud, I wanted to bring this back. Let's see if I can pull off this metaphor. Those of you who know me know my metaphors tend to get a bit stretched. But remembering what we talk about in trainings, about when you are getting in really sticky mud, like this big flaming crab situation we collectively find ourselves in, do you stop and stand still?
No.
No. What do? You just keep moving. So keep moving and call for help if you need it. So look around in the room and reflect on all the other people who are out there in the mud, working right alongside you, even though you don't get to see them necessarily all that often. And so with that, we want to thank you for being here and having been a part of this history. And that will continue, I think, as we join in recognizing some of the contributions of folks here today.
But before we end our trip down memory lane, can we just be reminded, Crab Team is an acronym, Sean.
Oh, this is a good one. This is a deep dive.
Y'all, I don't know what I was thinking when we came up with that. I think we started with Crab Team and we sort of back acronymed.
Acronym?
Yeah.
Also portmanteaus are like a
Crab researchers.
No.
Citizen researchers assisting biologists through estuarine aquatic monitoring.
Yeah, good job.
I just want to make sure we got that in there.
Yeah.
It was all caps. It was all caps.
All right. Well, thank you for indulging us.
Well, and so now we've talked through the large geography. We've talked through all of the people, but really we are here because of how important it is that each individual here in this room has been part of this. And so I just want to take a minute. Will you raise your hand, wave at us if you were a former monitor and emeritus that is back among our midst to help us celebrate today? I see a few waving hands. If you are just finishing your very first year of monitoring, will you stand up?
Oh, you can stand.
If you joined in 2023 and stuck around for a second season this year, will you join them and stand up? That just finished monitoring the season, will you all stand up?
All right.
I'll have some of you sit down, but will you keep standing? If you were here with us since before that 2020 lockdown all started, how many of you have been here since before COVID? To recognize if you were on this list and we're here for our very pilot season, helping pilot these protocols, will you continue standing so we can recognize you? So I'll have you sit down and pass the mic over to Emily for just.
Yeah, I will let you sit down, but I'm actually going to do a little mini roast on each of you, just because I know you're good for it. And for some folks aren't able to be here today, but I'm sure their data are on the way. So this was what we called our shakedown crew, and also they were sometimes adopted that title for themselves. These were the first 7 monitoring sites, one of which is no longer part of the program because we did learn something that site wasn't a good site for trapping green crab. Tom Voss, who was here at our very first crab team training, and this year marks his swan song with the program. And this is a picture of Tom, I believe, measuring his very last hairy shore crab at Deer Lagoon, where Tom, have you ever missed one of the monitoring efforts?
No.
Every single one. One sentence, Tom. What's this been like for you for the last decade? Or, I'm not going to cut you off.
Oh, it's been very enjoyable, and one key to the success of being at every monitoring event is that you're the person that puts the schedule together.
Yes. Pro tip, y'all. Thank you, Tom. Jamie Hartley. Jamie is here in the same tie-dye t-shirt. What I have really appreciated about Jamie from day one is that Jamie always has at the ready a Monty Python joke, and is always willing to risk getting deep in the mud of Race Lagoon to do it for just to make it happen for the crabs. So Jamie, I'll ask you, do you know if you have ever missed any month of monitoring? This isn't, I just want to give everyone a chance to
Not at Race, I've missed some at Hancock Lake.
Yeah, so this is the additional part. Jamie took on a second site and actually was really instrumental in helping us get access to Hancock Lake, which is this is like unexploded ordnance or something. I'm sure it's as these folks know. Jamie, this is your 20 seconds to share if you would like anything about the crab team experience.
I noticed you didn't give me unlimited time.
Lessons learned.
There's a lot of mud out there. It's a lot of fun, and the thing, I was so happy, the reason I wanted to do Race Lagoon was you can't get there unless you have approval from a private property owner. It's a place I always wanted to go. Same thing with Hancock Lake. It's a wonderful view. They are two of the most pristine coastal estuaries that I know of in Puget Sound. They're great.
Great for birds too.
Yeah.
But
they're
for crab
great
team.
there.
Thank you, Jamie. I don't think Gail has made it here yet today. She may join us later. Gail, I did a little mini roast earlier in terms of learning from Gail how to teach. Gail is also a great example of somebody who came into crab team not knowing anything about crabs. And just had such a great sense of humor about, switching from, but Gail also participates in about 60 citizen science projects. So learning how, Gail knew how to learn and how to pick up these projects, which has always been so impressive. Another person who's never missed a monitoring event since 2015. So if you see her, okay, so this next slide actually captures 3 people who are on the same team and have been monitoring Penn Cove since 2015. And let me see how I set this up because it was like I had to do some math. Okay, we're gonna start with Charlie, who isn't actually here today. Charlie Seablom has been on the team and has been the data submitter and is just remarkable for how few, I don't know how he does it because I couldn't do as good as he does at the data submission. So he just makes that time go so fast for me. So I want to recognize Sue. Sue, who has always been in crab team fashion. Sue is also, there's almost no pictures of Sue because Sue takes all of the pictures for the team. So there's the only ones I have are from 2015 of classic Sue documenting. Sue also has some of the best questions about natural history that I get. So she'll be like, hey, we saw this crab doing something weird. And I'm like, oh, I don't know, Sean, what do you think? And then Sean's like, he waves his arms like this. And that seems to satisfy it. Is there anything that you would like to share, Sue, about crab team?
Dave is great keeping us with the data. Fabulous. I so appreciate him for doing all of the recording and writing the numbers down.
Yes, and that is an excellent segue to what I think is my next slide, which is actually Charlie and Dave. Dave, whose last name is Grayson, which you might recognize from other parts of Crab Team, does in fact happen to be my dad. And my dad has excellent handwriting, another thing that doing data review super love. And has just been, I mean, it's like, it feels a little like I have to, you know, I get a little teary here about just having how great it's been to have him take that spirit of experimentation and support for his daughter to Crab Team. So, Dad, is there anything that you would like to share?
No, I just was thinking about Charlie and Sue, and so the fact that the three of us have stuck together for 10 years, it's pretty remarkable, especially Charlie, he's always got stuff ready, and he's always on the ball. It's really great.
So if you want tips on how to make team relationships work for the long haul, these are the folks I think to come to. And then it would not be would not be complete without Chris Jones. Chris is at Hollow Point. Chris was at the first training where we got the hook at 2 hours, and somehow we didn't lose him. I don't, and has been out at Hollow Point since then. Their team found the first green crab at Hollow Point back in, anyone want to fill in that gap? 2018. And it's just, also, the whole team has just been such remarkable natural historians for Hollow Point. And I think that this is a team that I love visiting all of the sites. And I think they were the first team to take me out to lunch when I came to the site. And it's just, and I'm not that I'm suggesting that, but it spoke to just a sense of hospitality and warmth that I have always really felt with Chris and Eileen and the entire team. That there's just really a sense of camaraderie that y'all bring, and Chris as the foundation for that team. Want to thank you and offer you the floor if there's anything you would like to share.
Well, I thought the interesting thing is that I was a Sea Grant Fellow in 1972 for 2 years.
Are you paying attention to this, Kate?
I am.
Yeah.
And on the shellfish project, and out in the mud with manila clams in that case. And this has been going on a long time. And this has actually been so much more fun than that. I've had great teams. Eileen, my wife, is definitely a key part, but the rest of our team, and Wendy, who's not here today, who took that picture, she's not in the picture, is a great photographer, and she just is a great observer. It's really fun just to kind of keep that continuity of things I've been doing a good part of my life. So that's great.
Thank you, Chris. Yes.
I could add also that Sea Grant will age your grad school too.
Thank you, Seagrant. Well, thank you all for sharing, and thank you for letting me put you on the spot. Y'all didn't know that was coming, and I hope that's okay. Forgive me. I want to just take one more opportunity to thank everybody for being here today. Lisa's going to walk us through what the rest of today is going to look like, and then we don't want to stand between you and food for much longer. So, thank you.
Okay, so just really briefly, here's what's next. We are all going to take a group photo right after this. Before we get our lunch, we're going to come out of these doors, hang a right, and right on the front steps, just across from the sign-in table there on the front steps, we'll take a quick group photo. Then we will release you to have your lunches. It'll be served until 2:15. Then you all, as you signed in, should have gotten a bingo sheet. Hopefully it'll help you kind of break the ice and learn some things about others that are here. We have some pretty good prizes to motivate your participation in this activity, and we will be giving those prizes out at the end of the day today, so you'll turn in your bingo sheets, and we will raffle off some prizes and things after Sean's dissection. So
We're not
turn
gonna
in your
dissect
seats as you
Sean.
walk in here.
I'm getting worried.
There's plenty of things going on just outside too, so temporary tattoos and tie-dye your shirts that you just got or white shirts that you may have brought. I want to point you towards room 108, which is just kind of around the rounded room over there. There's a reflection room where you can help us kind of tell the story and collect these stories. There's a timeline where you can add photos and stories to the wall. Get your little pin and pin your spot on the map in there. And also in room 109, just you can see the two from near each other. That's where we will be welcoming stories that you want to share, reflections that you want to share. We have these really nice stickers for Crabstock that you can totally get by stopping by that room. And then after all your fun mingling time, we'll meet back in here at 3 p.m. and Sean will dissect a green crab, I suppose. Which should be really cool. He knows so much. Ask him all your questions, bring him there. And then we'll end the day with some bingo prizes in closing. So next up, this can be you. This was 2019, and we will go together to the stairs now and take our picture.